it looks like you have some tattoos. So tell me.
I mean, I have a lot. So I think tattooing in the last 10 years especially has become this new form of not only self-expression, but art as well.
I specifically remember when I was growing up, my parents told me, like, if you get tattoos or if you get piercings, you're inviting demons into your body.
The main thing that people do whenever they read scripture is they take a flat interpretation to it. And there's also this missing context that we...
This is the Writers Are People Too podcast. Tonight we have with us to discuss a theological approach to tattoos, Dr. Justin Scoggins. So, Doctor, can I just call you Justin?
Yes, please.
I feel like you're
Thank
about
you.
to put a glove on or something.
Yeah, no, just call me.
Okay,
just call
Justin.
Me Justin.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I am a director at a local rescue mission. That's my full-time job. We help the homeless and those at risk of homelessness, doing meals, showers, hygiene, clothes. I got 3 kids, beautiful wife who's a master painter and professor herself. I'm also an associate pastor at the church that I go to. Yeah, man, just love Jesus, wrote a book, and it's pretty much my life.
Cool. Where are you located?
In Winter Haven, Florida, in between Orlando and Tampa, so right in the armpit of America. And we stay moist year round. It's great.
All the time. Yeah, I remember I was in Orlando last year for a work convention. It was like spring. And I just went outside and it was still muggy in spring. And I was like, I don't know how you guys do this. I can't even.
Yeah, we don't. We stay inside in the summer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I live in Asheville, so we got a lot of Floridians who come and visit us. They have summer homes or winter homes, and they just go back and forth because I guess the weather is...
You seriously live in Asheville?
So much better. Yeah.
Okay, so my wife and I were raised 30 minutes down the mountain, 45 minutes down the mountain, Lake Lure, Forest City area.
Nice. I've been to Lake Lure.
That's where we grew up.
I was looking at property over there. My wife keeps telling me that it's out of our price range to give it up, but I have my eye over there.
Keep your eye on it, man. Something will come open, I'm sure.
For sure. Cool. So, I love tattoos. When I saw this request for the podcast come through, I was really interested in that. And unfortunately, I actually don't have any. But it looks like you have some tattoos. So tell me what you got.
I mean, I have a lot. So
I want to hear about every single one of them.
Every single one. Man, I don't think your podcast goes that long. How about I tell you about a couple of them?
Yeah.
You good with that? So this is probably my favorite one. It's the slain lamb with olive branches around it. Just the whole idea of the peace of the kingdom, and this inaugural kingdom of Jesus, and the peace that comes from it that is opposite from the world, and just getting the lamb power versus the worldly power, and how the world operates and how subversive that is. And then the Greek word for sozo across my knuckles right here is included in that. Just every time you look in the New Testament, you see to be made well, to be made whole, to save. It's that same word. I think a better interpretation, which Brian Zahnd wrote about, was to salvage, is a great way to interpret that word. And then my other favorite one, I can't really get you a good picture, but I got that one from my wife. I just kind of did a little American traditional gypsy lady for her, and yeah, I get to look at that all day. So
what was your first tattoo ever?
My first tattoo, it was up here. It was these 2 itty bitty birds right there. That was it. When I turned 18, went to a tattoo shop in Shelby and got them done.
Did you have any meaning behind that first tattoo, or you're just like, I'm gonna get these swallows, I'm gonna be hard?
Yeah, I don't know if I could say I got swallows. So now I'm just this thug, you know what I mean? It was a story my mom told me when my grandpa died. He was my hero growing up, and I think I was 6 or 7, and I had no idea what happened when people died, or that death was even this thing into another realm or whatever. And she just explained to me, as any parent would, in the simplest form, that he turned into a bird and he flew to heaven, and one day you'll turn into a bird and fly to heaven with him. I was like, oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I love tattoos as a form of self-expression. I feel like if I ever get tattoos, I get some super nerdy ones like Lord of the Rings or something like that. But I feel like tattoos, they have personal meaning for people. And when I was a kid, I feel like you're probably about the same age as I am, maybe a little bit older. I'm mid 30s. We'll leave it at that. But when I was a kid, I feel like tattoos had a stigma of like drugs and gangs and violence. But I feel like there's been a culture shift since then. Um, do you know? Can you point to the cause of this shift, or what the ramifications of that might be?
I think a lot of it has to do with social media, and especially things like Instagram that are very geared towards aesthetic, and just the art form, as all art form does throughout history, it progresses towards something, whether that progression is abstraction, whether that progression is realism, or you can do an art history timeline and see where different trends have happened. And I think tattooing in the last 10 years especially has become this new form of not only self-expression but art as well. And these tattoo artists that are out there are just simply amazing. um, they're putting down stuff that would just have been unimaginable 20 years ago. The stuff that they're doing with the needles and with the ink and with the idea of, we can really just have fun and create something cool on the person's body, and then we can document it and share it with the world. And that's
Hmm.
really allowed people to buy into that. And then you got shows like Ink Master and stuff like that that really kind of make it more mainstream. And it's almost today that all pastors have to have a tattoo of some sort to have any sort of credibility, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I would say for me, just my understanding of it and doing my research, it's has a lot to do with social media, Instagram, and just the progression of art and expression of art and the different avenues that can take, and how people choose to express that both as artist and recipient.
Yeah. So your book titled "Inking Christ: A Theological Approach to Tattoos" comes out on July 30th. Looks like just a little under a week. So when people set out to write nonfiction, usually they have like a point that they're trying to convey or an argument that they're making. So ultimately, why did you decide to write this book?
Well, it was my dissertation topic um, for my doctorate degree, and I did it first in spite. It was one of those things people told me I couldn't do it, so I was like, okay, well, watch this. And then I just started to really enjoy it. And you do theological studies or any kind of PhD, THD research, and you get involved in this rigorous thing to where you're not only being sure that the information that you put out is valid, but you're defending this topic. But what I ended up doing was just falling in love with tattoos and the history of the church even more. And I was inspired to write it because, there's no other book out there like it. There's no theological book about tattoos that exist. There's one that comes close, but it was an essay of like 20 different people, or I don't remember. It's the philosophical something of tattoos. Really cool looking book, purple on the front and got skull and crossbones, I think. Um, but I wanted to do something that was me. Like I got all these tattoos. I'm in the church world. I love Jesus. I'm involved in academia, but there's a culture out there that they also have tattoos, and they feel left out of the church because of certain stigmas that are placed around images and how we bear images. So for me to create something that would tie into all of that at one time was my ultimate goal, and I think I did it. I don't know. I hope I did. I
Uh,
defended it
y-
well.
you mentioned some historical research that you were doing. Is there any sort of historical documentation of first tattoos specifically associated with Christianity?
So there's some debate. There's not a ton out there. I could not give you the journal entries that I found. I have no idea where they are on the internet now. I no longer have access to that digital theological library. But there were a few journals I found, and some were dating them in Ethiopia around 300 AD, 250 to 300 AD, And then the first ones in Jerusalem, anywhere from 500 to 700 AD. They started tattooing in carts, and travelers to the Holy Land would come and get tattooed. And then the first shop, Razuk Tattoo, opened up in Bethlehem in 1100. They were a standalone shop, so it's been around a long time.
Okay. I specifically remember when I was growing up, my parents told me, like, if you get tattoos or if you get piercings, you're inviting demons into your body, is more or less, to paraphrase what they told me. Obviously I don't think you believe that, but what are some perhaps references from the scripture that you have for or against that?
Well, so the main thing that people do whenever they read scriptures, they take a flat interpretation to it, and that means they're giving equal weights to, Old Testament law and New Testament, like they're on par with each other. And Scripture even defends itself, saying, "No, that's not it." Right? The old covenant passes away, the new covenant has come to replace it. And there's also this missing context that we do as we're raised in church, or we go to church and preachers are speaking, that we forget the historical context of certain verses. Now, I think exegesis is becoming more important as people in the internet and the World Wide Web have made it be so. But growing up, they would use the one verse out of Leviticus: if you tattoo your body, right, for the dead, you should be stoned. I forget what it says. That's my Justin Scoggins translation. But so we take that and then we kind of snowball it into different things. Your body is a temple of God, as Paul writes that in Corinthians, and people say that. The argument can go, but those are really only 2 verses. And I found probably, I think I remember 5 that say God has a tattoo. Right? Like, we're tattooed in the palms of his hands in Isaiah. The circumcision is a form of tattoo. The tattoo on Jesus's thigh, the stigmata, is a tattoo. Paul bearing the marks of Christ. The crucifixion marks of Jesus themselves are tattoos. So to say that Scripture is inherently against something just because we've been taught that is inaccurate. And do they invite demons? I mean, maybe, man. I don't know. I'm not a demonologist. I'm not the most spiritual person in the world. But I also believe that if anything can invite darkness in, it has the same capacity to invite light, and specifically the light of Jesus.
Yeah, and what that verse you just mentioned, our bodies are a temple. Again, to paraphrase here, I don't remember exactly, but it goes on to say, so with all things that you do with your body, do them in honor to God. So it could almost be an argument that if you are doing things to your body and they are an expression of worship to God, that it's okay. I don't know. I'm not the theologist. I'm not the doctor. I didn't write this.
And I think that's the argument, right? Like, if you take something that, and Christianity's done this throughout history with a multitude of things. We've taken things that have been deemed culturally repugnant by the church, but over time, what we do is we kind of appropriate that in a way, and we champion that, and we make it our own. And hopefully it's to the glory of Christ. Now, I see tattoos as a form of iconography, a form of illuminated manuscripts, a form of evangelism, a form of telling the narrative of my life and redemption in that story, and stained glass, right? And just wearing it on the body. And I believe it's just another place where Christ is operating, or has the potential to operate. And we see throughout history, throughout the church, that Christ is always seemingly operating on the periphery of things. He operates on the outsides. He always goes for the down and out, the low, the places where we wouldn't assume that he is. And I want to be where he's working. And if that means I've got to tattoo my face, then I'll tattoo my face.
You have anything on the books for face tattoos?
Well, I'm trying to talk my wife into letting me get like a little cross right here. But she's not too keen about that. But she's gonna let me get a neck tattoo soon. So okay. I'm working my way up.
Would you say that you got most of your tattoos before or after your dissertation?
Um, well, if you're in school, you're poor. So I had to get them a little bit before, and I got a couple during. And then when I got done, I got one of the images from my book on my thigh that my tattoo artist made. So it's been a little bit of both, but primarily, probably I would say before I started my dissertation work, I got most of it.
Awesome. Well, do you have any final comments, or if there's any, message that you want your audience to take away from this book?
I I just want people to read it, and then I want people to engage with the material. I want them to, maybe see tattoos in a different light, but I hope that they just take a creative approach to what it is to be Christian, to what it is to follow Jesus, to what it is to exist in a culture, and realize that when Christ makes the table and prepares the table, it's for everybody. And if there's a piece or a part of culture that hasn't been reached or touched by that table, then maybe somebody reading this will find their place and create space there. Um, and that's it, man. That's all I want. I want people to know Jesus, the true, beautiful, and good Jesus. That's it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for coming on tonight. We had Dr. Justin Scoggins.